They broke the one rule. The universe had one rule: don't wake the humans. For eons, civilizations across galaxies obeyed this command. It wasn't written in any sacred text, nor was it enforced by some cosmic authority. It was a whisper passed down through generations of interstellar beings, an unspoken law woven into the fabric of existence. Humanity had once been a species of boundless ambition, spreading across the stars with reckless determination. Their worlds thrived, their technologies advanced, but then, abruptly, they vanished. No war, no plague, no warning, just silence. They retreated into deep sleep, locking themselves away in colossal, artificial moons orbiting long-forgotten planets. No one knew why. Some said they had outgrown the universe itself, choosing to slumber until the cosmos offered them something worthy of their attention. Others believed they had glimpsed something terrible, and chose the safety of dreams over the horrors of wakefulness. Whatever the truth, the rule was clear: don't wake the humans. Curiosity is a curse. The Vaynari were a young race, barely scratching the surface of interstellar travel. Their scholars were restless, their explorers reckless. Where other species saw warnings, the Vaynari saw mysteries begging to be unraveled. So when they discovered an ancient human vault orbiting a dead star, curiosity won over caution. The vault was massive, a monolithic structure wrapped in layers of alien metal, untouched by time. Its surface was marked by a single phrase, etched in thousands of languages, some older than the galaxies themselves. Do not enter. Do not wake them. The Vaynari had deciphered enough history to recognize the warning. But they had also heard the whispers of old traders and starfarers, that humanity's technology surpassed anything in existence. If they could access even a fraction of it, their empire would rise above all others. Dr. Kaylin Vass, the lead xenologist of the expedition, was the one who made the call. She argued that the warnings were mere superstition, relics of a fearful past. The humans locked themselves away, yes. But if they are truly gone, then what harm could come from understanding their secrets? And so, they broke the seal. The moment the vault opened, reality itself seemed to tremble. A wave of energy rippled outward, distorting space-time, sending gravitational ripples across light years. The Vaynari scientists barely had time to register the change before the vault's interior came to life. The dreamers stir. Inside, thousands of pods stretched into the darkness, each one housing a human figure, preserved in perfect stillness. Their bodies were unchanged by time, locked in some form of suspended animation. The air was thick with an eerie hum, as if the very walls were breathing. Point 1. The one rule: the universe had a single law: never wake the humans. 2. The human slumber. Humanity vanished into deep sleep within colossal artificial moons, for reasons unknown. 3. The warning. Ancient civilizations passed down the rule, fearing the consequences of disturbing them. 4. The Vaynari's curiosity. A young alien race, the Vaynari, ignored the warning and decided to awaken the humans. 5. The consequence. What they unleashed was beyond their comprehension. Humanity woke up, and the universe would never be the same. The universe had a single law: never wake the humans. It wasn't a command written in some ancient text, nor was it enforced by an intergalactic council. It was simply known. A truth passed down in whispers, a warning embedded into the history of every species that ever reached the stars. No one could say where the rule had come from, but all civilizations that endured long enough to explore the cosmos eventually came across it. Some found it etched into the ruins of long-dead worlds, others discovered it hidden within encrypted star maps left behind by those who came before. The rule was never explained, only stated as fact. Do not wake them. Do not disturb them. Let the humans sleep. The meaning was as clear as it was ominous. Something had caused them to retreat into slumber, something had made them choose to leave the universe behind, and no one dared to find out why. Long ago, humans were not a mystery. They were everywhere, their influence stretching across systems, their ambition limitless. They built, they conquered, they discovered. Their worlds were beacons of industry and knowledge, their fleets unmatched. But then, without warning, they withdrew. Entire planets were abandoned overnight, great stations fell dark, and colossal city ships drifted lifelessly through space. They left no messages, no explanations, only vast, artificial moons where they had sealed themselves away. Each of these moons was different. Some were built of smooth, seamless metal that no scan could penetrate. Others were labyrinthine structures, spiraling endlessly toward unknown depths. They were scattered across the universe, orbiting forgotten worlds or drifting alone in the void. Some civilizations stumbled upon them by accident. Others sought them out in misguided attempts to uncover the truth. Regardless of how they were found, the result was always the same. At first, nothing. The moons remained silent, lifeless, offering no hint of what lay inside. But those who lingered too long, those who ignored the warnings left by their ancestors, those who dared to disturb even the smallest fragment of these human tombs, they vanished. Sometimes, entire fleets disappeared overnight. Other times, only a single explorer was lost, their last transmissions filled with static and whispers in an unknown language. The warnings came in many forms. The ruins of past civilizations bore messages carved into stone, scratched into metal, burned into the very fabric of their worlds. Some messages were simple: do not wake them. Others were desperate pleas, fragmented records of societies that had ignored the rule and suffered for it. One such record was found on a distant world, where an empire had once thrived. Its people had been advanced, their technology surpassing even the greatest civilizations of the present age. They had found one of the moons, and they had not heeded the warning. Their records spoke of an expedition, a team sent inside to uncover the mysteries of human slumber. They had succeeded in opening the gates, in stepping beyond the threshold into the unknown. Their transmissions started normally: scientific observations, descriptions of impossible architecture, readings that defied logic. But then, something changed. The voices became erratic, filled with confusion and fear. They spoke of moving shadows, of walls that pulsed like living flesh, of something watching them from the darkness. Then, silence. The empire collapsed shortly after. No one knew what had happened. What had been unleashed? What had escaped? The warnings spread across the stars, each story reinforcing the rule. Some civilizations enforced laws forbidding even the study of human remnants. Others treated the moons as cursed places, forbidding their people from speaking of them. The most superstitious refused to even acknowledge their existence, believing that to do so was to invite doom upon their worlds. And yet, despite the warnings, curiosity remained. There were always those who wished to understand, those who believed themselves immune to the mistakes of the past. Scholars, explorers, treasure seekers. Some saw the moons as the key to unlocking lost knowledge, others saw them as a challenge, a final frontier to be conquered. But none returned. The few fragments of information that survived from these doomed expeditions painted a picture of something beyond understanding. Some spoke of echoes that did not belong to the present, of whispers that spoke in forgotten tongues. Others described visions of a universe not yet born, or one that had already ended. Some claimed that the humans had not simply slept, but that they were dreaming, and that their dreams shaped reality in ways no mind could comprehend. And so the rule remained. Civilizations rose and fell, new species took their first steps into the stars, and the cycle continued. The warning was passed down, spoken in hushed voices, written in the oldest of texts, embedded into the very laws of those who sought to survive. The universe had one rule. One law that must never be broken. Humanity vanished into deep sleep within colossal artificial moons, for reasons unknown. No one could say exactly when it happened. To some species, it was an event lost to ancient history, something that had already occurred by the time they took their first steps beyond their home worlds. To others, it was more recent, something recorded in the archives of their ancestors, an inexplicable moment when the once dominant humans simply ceased to be. The humans had not died. That much was certain. Their technology was far too advanced for such a fate. They had surpassed the limits of biology, extended their lifespans beyond natural constraints, and conquered diseases that had once plagued them. They were not victims of war or some galactic catastrophe. There had been no battle, no enemy fleet, no external force that could have overwhelmed them. They had chosen to leave. And so they built their moons. Massive, artificial structures, each one an enigma. Some were planetary in scale, orbiting distant suns in silence. Others drifted freely in the void, moving with unknown intent, defying gravitational laws as if they no longer adhered to the rules of physics. They were neither planets nor ships, neither dead nor truly alive. Some bore the scars of age, cracks in their surfaces, remnants of ancient impacts, while others seemed untouched by time, their exteriors smooth and featureless, resisting any attempt to scan them. Those who stumbled upon these structures, whether by accident or through intentional search, all came to the same conclusion: these were not simple tombs. The humans were inside them. Not dead, not gone, but sleeping. Suspended in a state beyond time, untouched by the decay of millennia. The how and why remained a mystery. There were theories, of course. Every species that encountered the moons tried to decipher their purpose, to understand why humanity, the greatest force the universe had ever known, had willingly placed itself into slumber. Some believed it was a form of evolution, that humans had transcended their need for the physical universe and were waiting for something beyond their comprehension. Others speculated that they had seen something in the fabric of reality itself, something that had made them decide that sleep was preferable to wakefulness. A few believed it was fear. That humans, despite their strength and intelligence, had discovered a truth too terrible to face. That their choice to sleep was not one of progress but of escape. Attempts were made to study the moons. Probes sent to scan their surfaces. Ships that ventured too close. But the results were always the same. The warnings came in many forms. Some were etched into the ruins of civilizations long gone. Others were transmitted through ancient distress signals still floating through the void, their origin points lost to time. Some were whispered in the myths of species that had risen after humanity's disappearance, half-forgotten legends that spoke of a power too great to be disturbed. The message remained the same across cultures, across time, across every known corner of the universe: do not wake the humans. No one knew who had first spoken these words. Some believed they originated from the last remnants of those who had known humanity before their slumber. Others suspected they had been left behind by the humans themselves, a warning to those who would come after them. A final instruction for a universe that could not comprehend what it meant. The warnings were not always written. Some came in the form of entire civilizations wiped from existence, their planets left empty, their histories erased as if they had never been. Others were more subtle: ships found adrift, their crews missing, their logs filled with incoherent ramblings before cutting to silence. The lucky ones never found anything at all. The unlucky ones discovered something they could not understand, something that unmade them before they had the chance to tell others what they had seen. Among the surviving records was the story of the Zareth Dominion, an empire that had once stretched across dozens of star systems. They were an advanced species, their technology rivaling the greatest minds of their era. It was said that they had uncovered one of the human moons, a structure so large that it dwarfed their capital world. The Zareth were not ones to fear myths. They saw an opportunity, a relic from an extinct race that, if harnessed, could grant them power beyond imagining. They sent a fleet. Not just scientists and explorers, but warships, weapons trained on the silent behemoth as if prepared for an enemy that would not fight back. Their ships landed on the surface, their engineers worked to breach the exterior, their researchers attempted to decipher the strange, shifting symbols that ran along the walls. For weeks, nothing happened. The structure remained dormant, its surface unyielding, its purpose unclear. Then, without warning, something changed. The fleet's transmissions became distorted, filled with voices that did not belong to the Zareth. They spoke in languages that had not been heard for millennia, their words layered upon one another, an overlapping cacophony that grew louder with every passing moment. The commanding officers attempted to regain control, to make sense of what they were hearing, but the voices did not stop. They grew in number, in intensity, in presence. The fleet was gone within the hour. No debris, no wreckage, no survivors. The only evidence that they had ever existed was a single distress beacon that activated days later, transmitting the same phrase on repeat. They are not asleep. They are dreaming. The Zareth Dominion fell soon after. Their homeworld became a wasteland, their colonies silent. Whatever had happened to their fleet had not ended with them, it had followed them back, unraveling their society from within, erasing them as if they had never been. Other species, upon hearing of their fate, ensured that no expedition would ever be attempted again. The rule was reinforced, the warning spread. Not all who encountered the human moons were so reckless. Some civilizations, upon discovering them, immediately fled. Others built vast beacons around them, marking them as forbidden zones, ensuring that no one would approach. Some planets developed entire religions around the warning, believing that the humans were gods who had chosen to rest, and that disturbing them would bring about the end of all things. The most cautious simply erased all knowledge of the moons from their records, hoping that ignorance would be enough to keep them safe. But the warnings continued. The Vaneri were a young species, ambitious and unafraid. Their rise had been swift. Within a few millennia, they had expanded beyond their homeworld, conquered the challenges of interstellar travel, and established themselves as a dominant force in the galactic community. Unlike the older civilizations, weighed down by caution and superstition, the Vaneri prided themselves on their relentless pursuit of knowledge. To them, the universe was a puzzle waiting to be solved, its mysteries meant to be uncovered, no matter the warnings that came with them. They had heard the rule, of course. Every species that ventured into deep space learned it eventually. It was woven into the history of the stars, a quiet warning spoken in hushed tones by those who had survived long enough to understand its weight. But to the Vaneri, it was just another piece of old lore, another remnant of primitive fear passed down by civilizations too afraid to push the boundaries of discovery. When they first encountered one of the human moons, they did not flee. They did not send warnings back to their homeworld or mark it as a place to be avoided. They did not speak of it in whispers or shroud it in religious reverence. Instead, they saw it for what they believed it to be, a relic of the past, a monument left behind by a species that had long since faded into irrelevance. And they intended to claim it. The moon was enormous, larger than any structure they had encountered before. It hung in the void, orbiting a dead star, its surface smooth and unbroken. No visible entrances, no lights, no sign of life. It was a husk, silent and waiting, untouched for eons. The Vaneri scientists were enthralled. They had spent years studying ruins of lesser species, tracing the remnants of forgotten empires, but this was something greater. A chance to unearth the last secrets of a civilization that had once ruled the stars. Their ships surrounded it, scanning its surface, searching for a way inside. Their instruments faltered, readings fluctuating wildly, unable to penetrate the structure. It was as if the moon was resisting them, pushing back against their attempts to understand it. Some of the more cautious scientists hesitated, suggesting they should observe longer before proceeding. The warnings were brought up, the old stories retold. But the leaders of the expedition dismissed them. Superstition had no place in science. It took weeks, but they found a way in. A breach, hidden beneath layers of shifting metal, an opening that had not been there before. It was as if the moon had chosen to let them inside. That should have been the first sign to stop. Their teams entered cautiously, their suits sealed, their weapons ready. The interior was vast, endless corridors stretching beyond the limits of their lights. The walls pulsed faintly, organic yet artificial, responding to their presence in ways the first sign that something was wrong came in the form of time itself. The Vaneri expedition had meticulously planned their mission, accounting for every possible anomaly, but they had not prepared for the possibility that time within the human moon did not move as it should. Their instruments failed to keep track, their internal clocks losing sync with those outside the structure. Some members of the team swore that they had only been inside for minutes, while others insisted that hours had passed. The logs recorded conflicting timestamps, as if reality itself was uncertain of how much time had truly elapsed. Despite this, they pressed forward. The corridors of the moon stretched on in every direction, vast and unending, a labyrinth of smooth, seamless walls that pulsed with a faint, rhythmic energy. It was not light, nor was it a biological response, but something. Between the two, something that suggested the entire structure was not merely a construct, but something alive. The deeper they went, the stronger the sensation became, a low hum in their bones, an almost imperceptible pressure against their minds, like standing at the threshold of a great and sleeping presence. They began to hear whispers. At first, they were dismissed as interference, static from their suits, echoes from their own voices. But soon, the whispers took on shape, forming words in languages that had never been spoken by the Vaneri. Voices layered over each other, speaking not in unison but in discord, as if countless beings were trapped within the walls, murmuring secrets meant for no one to hear. The linguists among them attempted to record the sounds, but the audio files corrupted the moment they were extracted. Those who listened too closely began to hear the voices even after removing their helmets. Then came the disappearances. One by one, members of the expedition began to vanish. There was no warning, no sign of struggle. One moment they were there, the next, they were simply gone. The first few were thought to be accidents, the result of an unfamiliar environment, a moment of distraction that led them down the wrong corridor. But as the numbers grew, panic set in. They established tighter formations, keeping each other within sight at all times, but it made no difference. Those who vanished did not leave bodies, did not send distress signals. It was as if they had never existed at all. Attempts to retreat proved fruitless. The path they had taken no longer existed, the corridors shifting behind them, sealing them inside. Their maps became useless, their instruments unable to detect a way back. Some suggested marking the walls, leaving behind beacons to track their movement, but when they turned back, their markers had disappeared, swallowed by the living structure. They were not lost in the moon. The moon was keeping them. Then, they found the chambers. The first was discovered by accident, when one of the explorers leaned against a section of the wall and it opened. Not mechanically, not through any known technology, but as if the wall itself had chosen to grant them access. Inside, they found what they had been searching for, proof that the humans were not gone. Rows upon rows of them, suspended in massive, translucent structures that pulsed in rhythm with the moon itself. The humans were unchanged, untouched by time, their forms exactly as they had been before they had entered their slumber. Their eyes were closed, their bodies still, yet there was no sign of decay, no indication that they had died. They were dreaming. The realization struck with the force of a collapsing star. The Vaneri had believed the humans to be gone, had assumed that their legacy was nothing more than ancient ruins left behind for the younger races to inherit. But the truth was far more unsettling. The humans had not left the universe. They had simply chosen to sleep. The lead scientist approached one of the chambers, scanning the figure inside. The readings made no sense. The humans' brain activity was unlike anything they had encountered before, patterns that shifted in ways that should not have been possible, as if their minds were operating on levels beyond conventional comprehension. The longer they observed, the more distorted the readings became, as if something else had begun watching them in return. One of the explorers reached out, pressing their palm against the surface of a chamber. The moment their hand made contact, the whispers stopped. The pulsing of the walls ceased. The entire structure fell into absolute silence. Then the dreamer opened their eyes. There was no time to react. The Vaneri did not have the chance to scream, to run, to comprehend what had happened. The moment the human awoke, reality shifted. Their minds were not built to process what followed. The universe cracked open before them, revealing layers of existence they were never meant to see. Time bent, folding in on itself, trapping them in an endless moment of realization too vast to contain. The corridors around them stretched into infinity, the walls dissolving into stars, into darkness, into something beyond darkness, something deeper than the void itself. The dreamer saw them. It was not a physical sight, not something limited by eyes, but a presence so overwhelming that it consumed them entirely. They understood, in that instant, why the warnings had been given, why the rule had been spoken across generations. The humans had not been sleeping to rest. They had not retreated into slumber out of weakness or fear. They had been keeping something in. The moment of awakening rippled outward, shaking the fabric of reality itself. The Vaneri saw the impossible, fragments of past and future colliding, memories of things they had never lived, echoes of voices that did not belong to them. The dream was breaking, and they were caught in its unraveling. The last transmission from the expedition was fragmented, a garbled mess of voices that did not belong to the Vaneri alone. Within the static, one phrase repeated over and over, in every language ever spoken, in voices that did not belong to any living being. They should not have been woken.